So for today's event, we are joined by experts in the industry who are our advisors. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed council members onto the stage. To start with, Ms. Asha Sampath. Asha is the founder and head of growth and brand strategy practice at Brand Horizon. Welcome back, ma'am. It was great to learn the insights of ceramics industry in our last meet. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. DJ Bangara, the Managing Director of IDX India. Mr. Bangara holds multiple portfolios and comes with rich, diverse experience. Welcome, sir. We are pleased to have you back. Next, it's Mr. Himanshu Pandey. He is a director at Delhi-based Avantika Printers Private Limited. He is currently heading the digital printing department of the company. Welcome, sir. Next, it's Prabuddha Dasgupta. He is a packaging consultant with 33 years of experience in heading packaging development operations throughout India. We are pleased to have you, sir. We are glad to have with us Mr. Ramu Ramanathan, who is the group editor of Print Week India. He comes with over 25 years of association with the printing industry. Welcome, sir. Today, we also have amongst us guest speaker, Mr. Sriram Selvam, who is an associate editor with Print Week India. He covers news and happenings in Tamil Nadu region. He is also the ERP MIS expert for Print Week India and has been associated with Print Week India since its inception in 2008. A warm welcome to you, sir. We would also request our EFI sponsors, Gabby and Sam, to join our advisors onto the stage. Well, Print Week has captured much talked about MIS trends in India in their recent research. I would like to call upon Sri Ram to share their findings and also moderate the panel discussions after that.
Good morning, all of you. When we were told that there's going to be a discussion on MIS trends in India, we at Print Week thought we need to first quantify our understanding of the market and the ERP and MIS trends that we see, that we understand from the market so far, into numbers. So a month back, we put together a survey and we had it online, encouraging all our members, all our subscribers to participate in it. So the theme of the survey was redefining business success with ERP. So a brief of the survey methodology is available for you. So as I said, we needed to understand what the existing users of ERP think of the solution that they are currently using. And also, we wanted to understand what non-users or people who want to adopt ERP and their thoughts on what they think they need from an ERP or an MIS solution that they want to implement in their organization. So we approached this, as I said, as two parts. One, a separate set of questionnaire for existing users. Two, a questionnaire for the non-users. As I said, the survey was posted online for 2 weeks, and we also sent out emailers to our entire database. And what I'm going to present to you now is the results from the survey. The total number of respondents, as you see, is about 122. as I present the survey, it is not only going to be mere numbers or data. We also had a comment section for all the respondents to enter their details. So whatever the numbers might suggest, there is also a subjective element to an enterprise solution like EFI or any of the solution that is available in the market. The data might reflect their thoughts on a specific question, but there is also a subjective interpretation of what they actually think of each of those areas. So let me jump into the results quickly. The first numbers that you see is the total breakup. In the sense, out of the 122 members, we had almost 69% who were existing ERP users, and the remaining 31% were non-users. So this is a very critical number before we go into the results, because this is going to show you exactly what the thought process is in terms of the majority respondents. Though the majority respondents are the users, I'm going to start with the non-users because they give us a better sense of what expectations are. When it comes to the users, they already have a set of existing notion about ERP and what they've already experienced. But when it comes to the non-users, the idea and imagination is endless. So we picked on their brains first. So this is what I'd like to share, one of the comments that we received. As you see, everyone feels it is a really tough task, as Gabby was mentioning in his survey, in his presentation earlier, that the print industry is a niche industry, and no generic ERP has ever been as successful in solving all the problems that the printing industry poses. So that is what was the first thought that we could get from the comment section. So if I read it out for you, when it comes to generic ERP software, it is a tough task to implement for a printing plant. Most of the developers fail to understand the requirements. So that's the tone that we had when we started with the survey. So the first question we wanted to know is how many of the non-users would actually want to implement an ERP at this point. So that's a massive 74% in fact who wanted to implement an ERP, and it's only a 26% where people were still unsure of ERP being implemented. On that point, let me also tell you, the adoption of ERP in India has seen an increase in the last 3 to 5 years. There was greater resistance to ERP being implemented in their organization. If we go back in the late 2000s or early 2010-11, there was a greater resistance from the management themselves for ERP being implemented in their organization, because there are a lot of fear factors that played in their mind. But slowly, they started realizing that what my next slide shows, that ERP is critical to their success. In spite of them not being existing users of ERP or an MIS solution, 79% of the respondents believe that ERP or MIS is critical to the success of their organization. So that number is a major jump from what we've seen in the market in the last 7-8 years. There was also another slide with regards to how soon they look at implementing. As you see, most of them are still looking long term when it comes to implementing an ERP or an MIS solution, primarily because there are a lot of limitations in terms of their organization structure to go forward, and also with the number of choices that they have to make a decision on what ERP they'd like to implement. Typically, when an organization decides to go ahead and identify an ERP or a MIS solution for their organization, I think the life cycle from the initiation to actual start of implementation is anywhere between 6 to 9 months. So some people who have mentioned that they are looking to implement it within 3 to 6 months should be already initiated the process and almost through identifying the right solution for them. So the next is a very crucial slide when it comes to EFI at least. This was a question we wanted to know, what kind of solution would they like to prefer from the existing choices that they have. So as you can see, most of them preferred an local product, or they actually prefer developing an in-house product by themselves. Gabby also mentioned about that during his presentation, that there is a tendency to develop products in-house, which is resulting in a huge gap in the actual requirement for their organization and what is actually being developed. The expertise of the domain experts or the solution providers is missing when an in-house product is developed. But if you see, there's a huge 90 percentile preference to in-house and local products. Why do you think the preference is over an international reputed brand to the local and in-house products? Anyone has any opinion on that? Anyone at all? That is my question to you. Why do you think there is a preference to local and in-house development? Support. Support is one suggestion. Price is another suggestion. Sorry, I couldn't hear again. Because they think they understand the business better, all right? That's one of it. Yes, Anil? Yes.
Packaging type of customers, or
We had, to give you a profile of the respondents, it is from printing, offset, digital, packaging. It was across the sector. So it was again from CEOs, mid-management executives, to even end users who have responded to the survey.
And also, do we have some information about the size of these organizations, like in terms of probably revenue or number of employees type of things?
We do have that, and most of them are SMEs and larger corporations.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So the primary reason that we believe, before I go into the primary reason, we also asked, I'm going to come back with the answer to my question that I posed now on what do you think is the reason why they prefer the local and in-house solution providers. So before that, we also would like to see what they think are the important areas that they wanted their ERP or MIS solution to cover. So as you see, majority of them want the planning to be taken care by the solution at hand. Though there are also other modules which almost equally everything was preferred except for web to print. Where again, Gabby made an important point that marketing and e-commerce has taken a huge precedent in other parts of the world. In India, it still is lagging behind, from the results that we have here. So, from what they want to cover, we also have a comment from one of our respondents on what they think should be part of their solution, part of the solution that they want to have. Important modules that a print ERP should include are job, customer, paper stock, and inventory management. Additionally, financial reporting and real-time tracking of print job status is desirable, is what someone had to say. We are not including names and details, but this is from someone who's keen to implement an ERP. This is another very important slide that I think, and from an implementation point of view, the general perception among the printing industry, or any industry for that matter, when implementing an ERP or a MIS solution, is the stakeholders are the solution providers. That majority of the role is the solution providers' role, in the sense they have to ensure that the solution is implemented in your organization, and the role of the printer or the organization itself is much lesser. So if you look at this result, it's startling that more than 32, almost 32% believe that the solution should be plug and play, and their role in the entire process should be less than 25%. The time that they are willing to spend for the implementation process is less than 25%. And 50% is again about 36, which is acceptable. But what we believe should be an ideal time that an organization needs to spend during the entire implementation time is greater than 75% to ensure it is successful and the solution is implemented across the organization effectively. Again, this is an extension of the earlier slide. From time to their understanding, their accountability, the respondent, what do they believe is, who they believe is accountable for a successful implementation. They believe both of them play an equal role, but again, if you see, almost 27% still believe that the solution provider has a major role to play in the implementation of a solution, which is a larger number than expected, and this perception in the market needs to be changed very quickly. I'm going to come back to the previous slide later, but this is the most important area where we believe tilts the favor in the local and in-house development of their solution. What I didn't get the gentleman's name. I didn't get your name. Andy. What Andy pointed out as the understanding would be better from the local developers is what is reflecting here, that they want customization to tilt. In a sense, almost 85% of the respondents believe customization of any solution is utmost, and from 47% believe at least a few specific practices need to be customized, and 36% actually believe there's a larger extent of customization which is required. And only 15 or 16% believe that the customization is in terms of reporting and minor changes that the solution would require. So my understanding is the industry at large requires a best practice document to be prepared, where there is a larger understanding, a standard operating procedure, not in terms of just a solution, but in terms of operation throughout across the industry is required for us to ensure the customization requirement for every implementation is reduced, and that understanding needs to be educated, and the awareness needs to be created among all in the entire fraternity. See, this is the main reason why the preference, as Andy pointed out, is with the local and in-house development, especially with the in-house development, because they believe they can get exactly what they want, even though that might not be the best practice. That is a practice that exists in the organization, but that might not be the industry standard. So awareness and education is key for a wider, a reputed brand to enter into the market effectively. So again, let me go back to the previous slide. There's a clamor for cloud-based solutions these days, and that was reflective in the survey as well. But most of the organizations still are not prepared to take their data to the cloud. There is a lot of resistance, but they see that there is a clamor, there is a trend towards solution being on the cloud, but there is also limitation factors, right from the bandwidth availability to the infrastructure in the organization, to their fear of security, fear of data security being on a cloud, the fear of the unknown. When it is in their on-premise, the data on-premise is much more preferred. When you actually talk to printers or the people in the industry, but the survey shows that they believe in a hybrid environment where 47% believe they want a mix of both, where I believe they would want to keep their financials and the critical components on-premise and take web, and what they mean by mix of both would be web to print and other e-commerce related activities on the web. So again, emphasizing on the fact that customization is a key component in any ERP implementation in India so far. One of our respondents mentions that the exclusivity and customization of ERP software are vital irrespective of which brand, local or multinational they belong to. The key, the operating word there is exclusivity. Even though you're buying a product or a ready-made solution, the organization still wants the solution to be exclusive to their organization, not just customized, but exclusive. That's a strong term to use, and that is why the preference is still towards the local and in-house development. Again, we also wanted to know the understanding of technology over functionality among the respondents. So we asked them, what would their preference be? A fully functional product which suits all their requirements and fulfills all their needs, or something which is modern in the sense has the latest technologies, has got works across platform, and is maybe developed on a service-oriented architecture, etc. So the understanding is very clear here that people still believe functionality is key. They don't mind compromising on the technology. About 65% still believe that they want the functional requirement to be fulfilled more than the technology being state of the art. So that's that about the non-users or people on the wall who want to implement an ERP or a MIS solution at this point. Before I move on to ERP users, if there are any quick questions, I'll take them before I move on to ERP users. And I'm running short of time already. Okay. Arun suggests we take the questions later, so I'll quickly move on to ERP users then. So we asked the same question with the ERP users, how much do they think is an ERP or MIS solution critical to their business? As you can see, there's an increase in percentage. It was about 78% with the non-users, and it increased to 86 with the users. So that's good that people actually believe the system they're using is effective to them. That is generally the trend with throughout the set of questions that we asked. The users were ironically or surprisingly satisfied with the solution that they're using. Though when we talk to them, they still have a lot of issues and complaints. But when we actually gave them the questions to fill in, they were quite generous with their comments there. So we also have the numbers in how long they've been using the ERP system. So this is pretty straightforward for you to see. We've had an average of 3 to 5 years. 3 to 7 years would be the average number of respondents who have been using the ERP. And this is an again interesting thing. 70% across the organization is a huge number. As again what Gabby was pointing out, evolution in an organization seem to have happened in almost 53% of the organization, where people have started using the solution across the organization. This is an interesting slide for you. When we looked at a similar slide in our non-users survey, the focus was more on job costing and planning, etc. But here, as you see, the area which seems to have improved the most is billing. I believe an organization, an ERP implementation typically is top-down, and the management's focus is primarily on receivables. I guess that is what is reflective here. Billing as huge 93% of improvement when an ERP and MIS is implemented in an organization. And interestingly, if you look at the numbers right at the bottom, the job costing or the job management part of it is less than 50%. Whereas that is the area that ERP non-users wanted the ERP that they want to choose to focus on. So this is something one of the users had to say. Apart from the regular enterprise management part of it, they wanted, as Gabby was pointing out, the value addition, the CRM, the web to print, And ability to connect to third-party applications through APIs was mentioned by one of our respondents, which is crucial. And though this is a minority at the current state in India, it is definitely going to catch up where people want to, the trend is definitely changing. Something that EFI is not going to like, that only 14% of the existing users are even interested in changing the solution that they use now. So I'm going to skip this quickly. Okay, the next set of questions was primarily to understand their level of usage and what they think about their existing solution, the accuracy, the information that they get. Are they happy with the MIS that they're able to generate with the solution they have? Predominantly, it was all very happy users. So with the accuracy of the system, we have almost 93% agreeing that they are very happy with the accuracy of the system. Information is clear is again a huge number there. 55, 70%. The ERP provides up-to-date and sufficient information is again a huge number of 87%. So, as I said, the ERP users, we were surprised that there were so many happy users who have responded to the survey, and hopefully it's true. This is an again interesting point, that comment that we received. Though an ERP or an MIS solution is top-down in approach, the adoption is always bottom-up. If the adoption is not bottom-up, in the sense the end users or the people who actually populate or collate the data are not ready or involved in the change management exercise, then any solution implementation is going to fail drastically. So this comment is very critical, because champion users need to be identified in every ERP implementation to ensure the success of the solution in that particular department or that particular functional area. As the comment says, one needs to train a couple of in-house tech experts who are enthusiastic to champion the ERP implementation and take the essence out of it, which doesn't happen easily. So though he mentions what is a critical requirement, he also mentions the challenge that lies there. That change management is a very, very tough exercise, especially when it is across the entire department or across the entire organization. So again, carrying on with trying to understand, pick the brains of the users on how they see their ERP working in their organization. They seem to think that they get the information in time, about 85%. The reports is again about 83%, and that was about the ERP users. There's another interesting number that I'd like to share in terms of budgets that non-users were willing to share with us on what do they think were the budgets they'd like to have for their organization. Sanil also asked me about the profile of the organization. We did ask them about what they think is the IT budget they'll have for their turnover. So it was typically about 1 to 5% is what they believe they should be their IT spend, including the infrastructure and the software during an implementation process. We also ran numbers in terms of how much do they think should an ERP, they should spend for an ERP. That's a very interesting number there for you. So some of them felt that 20,000 is an ideal, everything is in Indian rupees, so 20,000 is the ideal budget for an enterprise solution, and it went up to about 2 million in rupees. So that's a wide range, that's a huge range for us to work with, 20,000 to 2 million, which is again short of the expectation that EFI would have. But on an average, we would say about 100,000 to 500,000 is what was an average spend that someone was looking at for an enterprise solution. I'm sure there's a lot of rumbling in the audience now after this slide. I'm sure you would have a lot of comments and questions on this, but I'm going to skip that for now. But what is the takeaway for us from this particular slide is, there's a huge ambiguity when it comes to software pricing. When they say they want an ERP or an MI solution for 20,000, that means there is a solution available for that price. So they have come across a solution which is available for 20,000 rupees. And they also seen a solution which is available for 2 million rupees. So what do they choose from? How does it differentiate? How do they differentiate a 20,000 solution from a 2 million solution? How do they differentiate from a 20,000 to 20 million solution? So there's a lot of questions when it comes to the cost ambiguity. And as someone who works with the industry, I think we need to address this issue, maybe come up with a white paper, come up with some kind of answers to the end users to say how can they actually differentiate a 20,000 solution, what should they look for an ideal solution. So there's a comment again, the cost discrepancy varies from one vendor to another and thus adds confusion among buyers. It's a major challenge for every ERP vendor or solution provider in the market now to justify the price that they set, because they obviously have competitors who price like 50% less than what they would quote, even if it is a 20,000 rupees product. So this is something we'd like to share. These are the solutions that are currently being used by the respondents. I'll let you quickly read through the list. So as I said, Sanil, I'm sure Microsoft Dynamics or Oracle would obviously cater to the larger corporations, and you have the entire trickle down here. So these are the key takeaways that we felt we should highlight from the survey. I've spoken about it in length. I'll just leave this slide for now and we move on to the discussion. I'll call upon Ramu Ramanathan, our group editor, to take over the group discussion. Any questions I'll be happy to take as part of the discussion.
So good morning. What I'll do is I'll just, good times for the industry again. I mean, I'm again back to sort of being a bit bullish. The latest numbers that we've got indicates that it's, by the next 12 months, it's 30 billion is the turnover for the print and packaging industry in India, which is fantastic. And just to give you a sense of what it is, it's twice the size of the Indian film industry. So we are twice the size, we're not as glamorous, we are not as sexy, and we are not there, 8 pages in every newspaper, but we are that big and powerful. So that is the big news. The second thing that's happening, and to answer your question, is that since PrintPack, which was when we met the last time post PrintPack, and I gave you that there are huge numbers of machines that have come in and so on and so forth. These were, at that time it was job orders, I mean, bookings and letters of credits and so on. Post that, we've seen a lot of new machines that have come onto the shop floor. So new installations, new plants. We don't have Narendra ji today, we don't have Gautam ji, but so he's just booked an MPS, which is a narrow web flexo line, top of the line. It's the Rolls Royce of narrow web flexo printing for his printing plant in Pragati. The interesting numbers for us, if you look at just sheet fed offset, and I'll just confine myself to that, is you have somebody like Kamori in India, which has almost got 40 machines on board in plants in the last 6 months. That's 40 offset machines. So with each machine typically being anything from 5 colors upwards, most of them fully configured with UV. You have Ryobi with 20 plus. And the interesting thing, and this answers your question, is we're seeing two shifts primarily. One is, we've been talking a lot about the C tier, B tier, etc. What was about 20 to 30% for the C tier and B tier market, we're seeing a higher growth in that. So the spends are coming from the C and B tiers for two reasons. One is, of course, greater aspirational, so centers like Ranchi, Guntakal, Vijayawada, because obviously it's going to be the next capital of Andhra, Raipur, at Chhattisgarh, etc. And the second is, of course, existing big players in the big cities who have mother plants there are obviously having multi-locations in some of the smaller centers. So that's the thing. And the second thing that we are seeing is growth. So typically, I mean, if we found that a lot of the printing plants, as Sriram pointed out, and which is what the basis of our survey were in the operational range of, operating revenue range of 10 to 50 crores, we are seeing that there's been an exponential growth difference in that. We are seeing them all move upwards. So typically, this would be anything between 10 to 150 crores with a few companies which would be sort of 300 crores, but that would be a handful in this particular survey. So that just gives you a kind of sense of what's happening out there. And this is just to do with one segment, offset, but there is a lot more that's sort of happening. I know that Sriram's eaten a bit into the panel, so I'll just quickly start off. Gabby, I have a couple of questions for you to start with. I mean, first and foremost, thank you for your wonderful presentation. The question is, I mean, this is one of those sort of catchphrases or cliches, as they say, that typically there are three well-known lies. One is that I love you and I love you forever. The second one is the check is on its way. And the third is, a happy ERP customer. Has that changed, that perception, that there is no such thing as a happy, truly satisfied ERP customer?
I think that it really depends on the relationship between the print business and the vendor. If it's a vendor relationship, I provided software, you're stuck with a problem, you're going to get into issues very quickly. And I would say, many of our customers that do look at us as a vendor, or we behaved as a vendor, they had some good results. As they evolved, now it's about how do I evolve with the software, and it's become more complicated. So even if they were happy at the beginning, they might have some issues down the road. I think that with those customers where there was a stronger partnership in the sense that they were open to have us come in, take a look, provide some guidance and so on, we see very happy customers. And therefore, our aspiration right now is really to move almost everybody to that mode. I mean, we cannot provide it for free, but we're trying to do it in a way that it's cost effective, the value is much greater than the cost, so that periodical discussion would be there on a periodical basis every 6 months and so on, so we can help keep them up to speed and have the solution support them. So we have quite a few very happy ERP customers, and we have ones where it's been, we are a vendor, we provided something, they went on their own, they have all kinds of issues, they might not even let us know, and they might not be happy.
Sure.
So we had both. But I think that the complexity I was speaking about, the diversification I was speaking about, would force the relationship to be more of a partnership. And then we'll see many more which are happy customers.
Sure. There was one interesting slide in Sriram's presentation. It was, a clamor for plug and play. I mean, this period of gestation, both, before the installation and then finally on. Is that sort of a science fiction scenario, or do you think it's likable? I mean, it's possible, and if yes, how soon can something like this be turned around, given all the complexities of the graphic art industry?
You mean to become plug and play?
Sorry?
You mean to become plug and play?
That's right. Yeah.
So, if you think about it, by the way, I must say that when I've looked at the results with the one which are using ERP, the fact that very few saw value in job costing and in shop floor, and most saw value in billing and maybe accounting, shows to me very clearly that what they call an MIS or ERP, which is Microsoft Dynamics, which is accounting and invoicing, it's not what we call an MIS ERP, which is all the print-specific stuff, right? And so for me, it's an indication that we're talking about very nascent, step where it's really around managing my financial accounting and so on, not so much production, and not to speak about, marketing and when e-commerce and so on. So just a comment.
Sure.
Now, once it becomes not just invoicing and accounting, but all the other things I've shown in the ecosystem slide, then it's not about software. It's about business process implementation. And then, if you buy an SAP in any different industry, the software is very rich, but it's not about what the software can do, is how to make it work right for you. So it's not about plug and play of the software. It's about configuring it in a way that would work for you. Now, what we try to do, So it's never going to be plug and play in the sense, plug and play may be the software, but it's not about the software, it's how to configure it and how you train the people to use it for the unique needs of your business. So I don't think it's going to ever be plug and play, because there is a business process management that comes with it. And by the way, that's what fascinated me in EFI. I'm relatively new at EFI, 1 year, because I like those kinds of businesses, because it's beyond just pure technology.
Sure.
I think that what we are trying to do now is to make it simpler for a customer by saying, I'm going to recognize the fact that you are a super wide or a label printer or and so on, and I'll try to come up with enough value and enough guidance up front so that hopefully if 90% of it would fit you, and it's only 10% that you need to adjust, it's going to be a quick adjustment. While today, for every vendor, by and large also EFI, it's like gourmet cooking. I have all the ingredients, what shall I cook for you? But then the whole cooking has to happen. If you come with says, I already pre-cooked what I think fits you, let's just make the right adjustment, let's just add the topping to the ice cream that I already brought with me, then it could be a much faster process. And that's where we're trying to get to.
Another interesting sort of macro perspective we got from the presentation is this is something we saw happening about 10 to 15 years with CTP in India, where there was a sort of initial step taken, and these were baby steps, and then there was an exponential growth when the CTP plates moved in with digital and then the workflow and so on. This seems to be in a similar stage of growth in India where the initial baby steps have been taken. The question now is that this 87 or 86, I don't remember the percent, who are satisfied with existing users, which as you say is basically a sort of invoicing billing software, how easy for them is now to make the actual, the leap, the sort of leap in faith, and more importantly, technologically, how easy is it for them to make that shift? Is that sort of doable?
Yeah, first of all, it's definitely doable. I think the key issue is, first of all, in India, at least from my experience from different industries, there is willingness to pay for hardware. There is much less willingness to pay for software.
True.
So, and here, software can really be transformative in terms of the value. So I think there's a lot of education to do.
Sure.
And the concept about labor is not expensive, so I can just put labor at it, doesn't work when you diversify and want to scale.
Sure.
So it's really starting to educate the value of what you can gain from it and how much it can really save you.
Sure.
And then it becomes not how much I pay, is what's the value I'm gaining. That's why we chose, and it's relatively a relatively recent decision, to say we only want to go to the very high end. And we want to start to educate from there. And Sam, is doing a beautiful job in trying to start that rolling. Because there, the challenges are enough in terms of multi-plant and scheduling and how you can promise time and deliver on that. How can you scale? How can you diversify? For them to say, well, I need help. And I need someone who has seen it and done it, not somebody that have to teach how to write software for me, because I don't have time for that. And this is where we think we can have a good business and start creating a baseline of references that hopefully would educate others that is actually something to look at. So it's going to be an evolution, I believe, and we chose to start from the top because for them, it should be eventually a no-brainer. Yes, I do need that. It's worthwhile spending money. I can get so much more in return.
Can I add just
sure.
very quickly? We are currently engaged in 3-4 really top-notch companies in India. Obviously, it's early in the process, but it's clear that they understand the value, they have the need, etc. So really, sometimes you are satisfied with what you have till you actually experience something better. I'm pretty sure if in 1970s, if you would have asked television users were they happy with their dial knobs, and they would have been extremely happy, but the moment they started using remote control and they didn't have the remote control for their TV, now they are dissatisfied because it's seeing that there is a better way of doing things that actually matter in terms of quality, in terms of cost, in terms of diversification, all the drivers that we talked about. And so, Gabby is absolutely right, with some success. I mean, you can't just talk about it, right? You have to show it. The difference between India and other markets is very little is taken on faith. It's kind of like Missouri in the US. It's a show me state, it's a show me country. And so you gotta have proof in the pudding. And the second difference really is they don't want to look too far ahead. In US and Western Europe, you can see people happy with 5-year ROI. We want 2-year or less ROI. So you have to figure out how to, bottle your product in a way that's amiable to the market, but the need is definitely there.
Himanshu, I'll ask you a question. I know, I'll just go in a row then. So I'll ask Himanshu. I know that you've been investing in digital devices, in new space, and so on. And I've had long conversations with your father that there needs to be better sort of inventory management, the workflow, etc. And he says that it's all here in my head. And of course, he's a mathematician, and his brain is superior to ours. But again, listening to these arguments, do you think that there's a time and place, and what is the sort of existing approach? Because you typify a lot of the organizations that we have in India in terms of the way it operates in a big city, small space, optimized utilization, a lot of customization, little bit of screen printing, little bit of UV. So right now, what is the workflow, and what could be a sort of important tip that you would have for people within EFI to develop this whole thing?
Ramu, if you have asked me these questions around 6 months back, I would have said all the things in my company would have been either on the paper or on the Microsoft Excel. But as I have been in charge of the digital department, I see the needs, whereas I have to carefully execute all the things according to the customer needs. So I have to be well prepared ahead of the time. So as I have seen your survey, yes, I have done some investment in developing my own solutions from the experience which I have gained over the time period of 10 years. I'm still not convinced with the software which I have been developing, or it's still in the nascent stages. But I require some more inputs from my competitors itself, because some things which I can judge, they can judge better than me. And there is a fierce competition between me and my next door competition. If I am selling a print at 15 rupees, he is selling at 20 rupees. Might be the print actually costs 12 rupees. He is getting the more margin of 7 rupees. I am getting only 3. So all the things work around in software in which I can benchmark those things, convert them, and get the profit out of them. In the end, it's a profit.
Sure.
To get up.
But while you were working, can you share this module that you're working on with your technology
partner?
Actually,
I started from the inventory management, that how much inventory I would be needing in a week's time for my digital presses to run without hampering the production time. So while developing, I added some modules like invoicing. From the digital department itself, there is a separate invoicing from my company, and the digital department is doing its different invoicing. And apart from this, how much inventory should be present at my place so that I don't incur too much cost while storing them. I do not do the pilferage of the sheets which I order from the market, because over the time period of time, these sheets don't give us predictable output. So these things go.
And was this pushed by the MNCs? I mean, like OUP, and because they are your partners.
Yes. They were asking for a preferred time for the dispatch kind of a thing, and while working on the paper and Excel, that doesn't give us a specific time frame to get them things delivered. So we have to devise our.
Sure. Prabhuda, you wanted to say,
Yeah.
It's on.
Yeah. The thing which interested me was the people who are not ERP users. For them, the most interesting thing was planning. So obviously, the planning is something which needs to be improved. And I can, as I think back on my experience on, say, running a factory, I think that was the area where it hurt the most. So but the moment you see a actual ERP user, to him it has gone on to billing. That means it has moved from operation to a business process. So that means that when you have an ERP, the people are happy with the planning process. Now the billing, which I think would be involving your getting your receivables and also paying to your customers, which is a part of the inventory management. I think that's very important because, say, one of the thing when from my practical experience, I can feel that there was a large cost of uncertainty. That means that when you have a job in hand, when you don't know when the next job is going to come or when a similar job is going to come, but you don't want to run out of your inventory, you will have to carry that inventory or get that inventory at a very small notice. I remember of flying in liquid ink through air and things like this so that I can't say no to a person. Now these costs ultimately get into your final bottom line. And that is where unless you use this system, you will not know how these costs have come down. For example, I remember that when I adopted a ink management system in 2 companies, how the costs went down on total ink management, which is inventory and receivables and things like this. This was one. Secondly, what I see in industry today, that industry realizes today the importance of IT and having a ERP system. But they are doing it in small bites. They are putting it where they need it most. And so after some time, what happens is that they start getting the advantages. Then they realize of a system which encompasses it all, so that it integrates all these modules and come up with one module in which there are no compatibility issues with different systems and things like this, and which has its own reliability. I think the Indian industry is going through a system in which it will first, I'm talking about the small scale or a medium scale. I'm not talking about large scale because they have already experimented with it. So they will experiment with it. They will get a confidence that they can do it, and then they will go for a bigger system which integrates, and they have already seen the advantage. That was what I wanted to add.
DJ, would you want to add some comments?
Yeah. No, I mean, talking as a user and as a printer and people who've invested to a great extent in a lot of these systems. If I look back over the last 15 years, we got our own solutions done. And if I calculate the amount of money we spent on stuff that worked, that didn't work, that couldn't grow, that couldn't evolve, it's like Gabby said, one of the biggest advantages of something like this would be to create a suite, something that evolves, something that can grow. Anytime we have spent money on home solutions, as I call them, they haven't been able to evolve. I mean, we thought that, at that time we had no option, so we had to just go about doing things. But if I had to advise anybody today, I would say, it's better to go for a product like this. But again, if I have to talk to EFI, I will say that, you got to make the entry affordable. You got to make the entry easy. A lot of people will look at, if you take the pyramid, the top already know about you, they see a value in it. The bottom, you can leave them out for the moment. The middle is the most important part. And that middle portion is your target actually. But, I mean, if I had to think of it, it's like accounting software. 20 years ago, my accountant was writing out our balance sheets and trial balances and things like that. And somebody said there is a software called Tally. And what was it? It was introductory packages, 1,000 rupees and things. I put in Tally 20 years ago. And at that time, it just made things easier. Proof of pudding, as you said. It just suddenly showed that there's an easier, quicker way of doing things. But it didn't cost an arm and a leg to experiment. The entry was easy. We got it in, and as we got into it, then they had the next version and the next version. And guess what? Today, you're paying an annual fee. It's renewable every year. Now, we would never have done that. I would never have put it in at a start. So my advice to EFI will be, industry needs this kind of ERP. They need this MIS. But they don't know how they're going to get it. And we can be talking till the cows come home and they will still not get it, right? You need to introductory package. Make it easy. Get your foot in the door, and when they've, see, finally it's about value. I don't mind paying that annual fee today to Tally because it's giving me value and it's proven. So definitely this is the sort of thing which will, and I think you should come in with, you should have a way of getting in with a very basic entry level package which just gives you just a bit of what it is. And then you get your hooks in, because then somebody who's growing faster wants to add a few modules, you want to do this, you want to do that, and you should be able to grow from a small proprietary company into a multinational company with the same basic platform that you did. That to me is the challenge. That to me is the answer to both EFI as well as the target audience.
Yep. Sam, is that doable? I mean, having an entry level basic and then of course something premium at the top, so like a multi-slab approach for India specifically.
Are you asking me if that is a global trend, or?
Yeah, so two questions, whether you're already doing it internationally and whether you can sort of tweak the module a little for India or emerging markets.
Right. So, globally, there are different buying habits, in US and North America, Western Europe, etc. They tend to go holistically. They look at the whole thing and they say, okay, I need to really leapfrog and get to the end. And so I'm going to invest on it, and they're going to go through deep due diligence, and they're going to be that way. So that's different. And thus, they are looking for, give me more connected package, pre-package, give me holistic solution, don't give me point solutions. I mean, our strategy globally is best of suite instead of best of breed, and it is for that reason. Here though, it's slightly different dynamics. It's kind of like, I have a particular problem currently that's dominating my cerebral forefront, and let me just worry about that problem. So whether that's scheduling, or whether that's inventory, or whether that's costing, or job costing, or pricing, etc. Let me just focus on that. Once I free myself of that problem, then I have some cycles to think about the next problem and the next problem. So companies like EFI need to look at Indian customers, and it's not only India, there's a lot of emerging markets, similar buying pattern. Need to look at these customers that as not one and done customers, but as a relationship that they will continue to buy, not just pay you maintenance, but continue to add modules as the time goes by. And our software, though, can be packaged together as best of suite, can also modularly work one piece at a time, and that's our endeavor.
Sure. I'll just have a comment. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, just to add, in certain markets, definitely North America, we do exactly what was mentioned. I mean, we do have for commercial printers, for example, mid-size, even smaller guys, we have a package-based essential that comes with the basic capability, with very prescribed services that comes with it for relatively quick deployment. So those are available. We also have an entry-level solution, which is really for very small shops. That is done, they deploy it themselves. It's done over a weekend. It's cost, in US terms, cheap, although in the range we've seen here, it's in the upper range of it. And it's really for mom and pop shops, and so on. So we do that. The question is really for India, what's right for us and so on. And I think that there's a lot of education to do. Doing things in the entry prices that were defined here is not something that is too compelling right now. We have better opportunities elsewhere from that perspective.
Sure.
And therefore it's really to find the right segment where we can make a real difference. Because it's not about selling 1, 2, or 3. It's about making a difference.
Sure.
And that's why we're trying high end right now. But I absolutely agree that the opportunity in India as well is really mid-market. It's just a matter of, if you go there, you have to do it at scale and talking about dozens and eventually hundreds a year for it to really be a compelling business. And that's, there's a little bit of a catch-22, or a chicken and an egg, when do you start and so on. So I think that once we establish ourselves at the high end and can show enough references, you can go mid-market and say, we're going to give you those kinds of results, but for your size of business. And then when you have enough proof points to point to, we can do it at scale. So that's kind of the strategy. But starting mid-market, I think is going to be a little bit more challenging before you establish yourself with sufficient proof points why this is so superior than some of the standard ERP and some of the local solutions that you can buy in India.
Sure. Yeah, quick, just keep it short as far as possible.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You were talking about the evolution process for the best of suites, and usually, and also about business process management. So these are two extremes, I would say, because business process management would typically mean re-engineering the entire organization's process, and the evolution process is where we're talking about bits and pieces, starting off with bits and pieces and then evolving to an entire organization-wide business process evolution. So what are the challenges that is typically part of an evolutionary process? Because when it comes to business process re-engineering, it is one-time effort throughout the organization. But in an evolutionary process, does it involve a very different challenge from a re-engineering strategy?
So it is true that depending on how you evolve, you might choose to make changes along the way in how you operate. That's absolutely correct. Now, the approach we've taken is we're not coming up front and says, look, let me try to design with you how you should operate 5 years from now when everything is automated, right? It's rather where it's really the pain point for today. So some guys are saying, it's really the core MIS. I want to be able to have one central view for the orders I'm getting, the job I'm producing, how do I invoice for it, and so on. And that's really the core I want. I'm not even interested in DMI, in shop floor data collection. That can come later. And then the question is, here is how some of that can come out of the box. You can either adjust to do it that way, or we can help you configure it to adapt to a different way that you want to do that. But once you start adding things, like, I want to start also doing fulfillment, or I want to start adding shop floor, or I want to start to do web to print, that might start changing how you need to look at the business. And in many cases, it provides opportunities. So for example, one of a recent very positive feedback from one of our customers is that they were challenged to make money from small digital orders, or $40, $50 orders, because they had to handle them manually, and the cost was showing no margin. So for them, adding DSF, web to print, allowed them suddenly to create margin, but they had to change how they go about it, right? How do they automate the process? So once you start adding capabilities, yes, you do have to change the process, and where business process consulting is helping is, how do you make the next step forward, right? And what adjustment you need to do for that, right? Some are more, have a bigger appetite to do bigger steps, and then you are right. Then you can really dramatically change how things being done. But many are want to just do it step by step, and you just make the next step make sense. Did I answer the question?
Actually, let me quickly add. I think there is, when Gabby mentioned earlier that in ERP software it's hard to do plug and play. I think you've taken it to me in business process re-engineering. It's not necessarily. See, you have to understand every business has a differentiator. That's how they compete in the market and against others. And part of the differentiation, besides what you make, what your pricing is, what your marketing strategy is, what your acquisition strategy is, etc., is also your production strategy or your business processes. So let's understand that every business has derived their own business processes over the year. Most of the business and printing industry are not born yesterday. they've been around maybe multiple generations, so they have honed their own processes based on what their competitive differentiation is. Now, when we come in, our software must fit this guy and that guy and that guy with different business processes. So it is adjusting our software to automate their business processes. It's not re-engineering yet. So first it's about, here is whatever you were doing manually, here you are doing automatically. And once you start gathering the data with that, you can understand, you can see opportunities to optimize your business processes. That's when the re-engineering will come later on.
Sure. I must say, though, that to build on what Sam was saying, is that the appetite that we see today to consult or to guide is much bigger than it was before. So before it, all right, here's the software, this is the kind of ways you can go about it. The answer is, that's how I do it today. All right, let's help you do it the same way you do it today. We start hearing more these days, that's how I do it today, but how do you think we should do it? And you share your, some of your experience. Some are saying, yeah, that could fit, I want to try it. Some would say, you know what, I'll stay with what I do. But there is a willingness to listen. So when we send a consultant, and the consultant is, you can do it this way, A, B, or C. How do you do it today? And the answer is A. But then the question is, but what you would recommend, and the answer from us is A, B, or C, they get pissed. They say, oh, I want to hear from you, what do you think I should do, right? So that's kind of requiring us to step up in terms of the kind of experience we provide, and to be able to answer those kinds of questions,
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, Ashaji, you had a sort of intervention. Just one small input for people in the audience. There are, your bottles of water are kept here, so you don't need to always step out. There's, I think, 2 or 3 tables strategically placed, so you can have your water from that. Thank you. Ashaji.
Hello. This ERP is a subject very close to my heart because I was very deeply involved in the ERP implementation in the organization that I was most recently associated with. And I'm happy to be sharing a few experiences from that. Essentially, there will be a lot of resistance, but I think it's important for the top management to visualize the benefits that can flow from this implementation of the software. And also, it's also important for the top management to stay committed all through the process, because there'll be a tendency to let go halfway through the process. There'll be a tendency for people to let go or stop the process halfway through. So it's very important for top management to ensure that they are part of the process all through. Very clearly, it's important initially to define the business goals and then align the extent of innovation to the extent that the organization can financially support the innovation. Having done that, I think it's also important to choose the right infrastructure, IT infrastructure that can align to the culture of the organization. So cultural change and financial challenges are the most important. But in our case, I think very clearly we could visualize that the time that was being spent on non-value added and repetitive activities was very quickly diverted to more creative thinking, and the transparency that resulted from an ERP implementation also resulted in co-creation of ideas within the organization, because more people have access to the information. And this helped ownership from the entire organization to any new business ventures or ideas that were being discussed. The only suggestion that I can give is, I think it's very important that the ERP system should be should have ERP mobility, because these days a lot of people work away from their work offices, so it's a virtual office all over. So the ERP mobility is a very important factor. And second, the user interface probably adds to the value of a ERP system. If a salesperson goes to a customer, if he's able to click the history of the customer over the last 5 years, say at the click of a button, I think it adds huge value in terms of customer value proposition. So these are the thoughts I wanted to share.
So it's good that we have a recording of the session, because I'm going to take a piece of what you've said, I'm going to show it to some other people. Because you're so right on the fact that you would be amazed how many ERP implementations do not have a clear goal of what is that we are trying to achieve? And then exactly to your point, success is not about did we achieve it or not, is how does the team feel about it? Well, that's not a picnic. We not came to sing Kumbaya, we came to get results, right? So one of the things we are putting much more emphasis now, and you're absolutely on the mark, is saying on the delivery side, we have to make sure that we understand and we formalize what is the goal, what success would look like. And then management of the customer can portray to the people, that's where we're trying to achieve. Sure. And then we have a goal to aspire to achieve, and then if we achieved it, it's success. If not, it's not. Versus the team likes it or don't like it, and so on. Changing behavior takes time. If you have a clear objective that you know what you want to achieve, it's so much easier to do. So it's what you've said, it's so right and so simple, and you would be amazed what percentage of implementation, that's very basic and important step, is not being done. So the more consistent we are in doing that, the better we are, and we are putting a lot of emphasis about that. Because as a vendor, sometimes it's scary to have very clear goals, because then success is very binary. It's very easy to hide behind, you see, why would I take the risk to have a clear goal? But it's so fundamental for success. Sure. So I'm going to take that piece of video, I'm going to use it with some folks.
Sure. So I'm going to conclude this with just one last input from Sriram. I mean, you've seen the data that you've crunched and all that. I know that you yourself are doing a sizable amount of work with the construction industry. It's as probably anarchic and chaotic as the printing and packaging industry. Very fragmented, small, big, organized, multinationals, lot of cash flow. Again, are there parallels? Because I know that there have been certain developments within the construction. Your own organization, I know, has 30 or 35 fairly solid sort of ERP customers. But again, parallels and lessons for us sitting here today, something that we can learn from the construction industry.
The most important thing is to invest your time in a solution like an ERP to ensure that the productivity of your entire organization is going to change when you invest in an ERP. That is the primary thing. And also, the major challenge that we face, even in any industry for that matter, is the resistance to change. That too, not at the management level. When a management is convinced that an ERP is required, they go ahead investing without consultation with their entire organization. The important step when you're deciding to implement an ERP or an MIS solution is to ensure that you have the confidence of your entire organization, and you make sure they are part of the process, they are part of the decision making, and that is the way to ensure that you have a successful implementation in place.
Sure. So the lesson, I guess, is that EFI needs to be an influencer, I think, more than just a vendor for EFI. I'm sort of done. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That was wonderful discussion for sharing your thoughts.